What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another week of Muskies on Tap. I am your host, Gus Manti. We have a few in the Mott crew on here tonight. I will introduce them all with us here. We have Max Manti, Tyler Andrews, the Guru, and Brian Eckel. How you guys doing tonight?
Good. Feeling really good.
Doing pretty good, man. After a successful weekend.
Yeah, sounds like it. Brian, how you doing over there?
I'm doing good. I had a very fun weekend. No fishing for me, but Guru and Gus got out and wrangled some muskies. So looking forward to breaking down those adventures. Max?
Before we get there, people want to know, what did you go to the bars dressed as this weekend for Halloween?
I can't answer that question.
What do you mean
What?
you can't? Did you
That's
sign an NDA or something, or what?
Fortunately, I did not have a costume this weekend.
People are only going to assume it was something extremely suspect if you're not actually saying what it is.
Honestly, I should have gone as full denim just to post on the Mott page, but yeah, this holiday snuck up on me this year, so I wasn't very well prepared.
So you're one of those guys that's like too cool to dress up for Halloween now that
No, it's not even that.
It's 24 or whatever you are.
Just a lot of work, man, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree.
One of these years I'll put one together.
Guru will appreciate this. I went as Ricky from Trailer Park Boys
Yes.
this Halloween, and my girlfriend went as Lucy. So we were a sight to behold. I even did the whole beard shave. That's why I'm clean shaven now, because I had a goatee with the sideburns.
Can we get a pic of that for the Mott story?
Yeah, there's a few out there. Some postable, some not, but fun time. Definitely went true to form. If anyone's seen Trailer Park Boys before, I was really leaning into the character.
Nice.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at a pic right now. You you did well.
Yeah, it was good stuff. But that's not what we're going to sit here and talk about tonight. I know a few other guys that did not dress up because they were bundled up in some outdoor adventure attire because they were out fishing, which Brian and I are very jealous of. But Gus and the Guru got out this weekend and put a few days together. So I am real curious to kind of hear what went into that and how you guys ended up doing. Seemed like you had some success.
Yeah. Hey, me and Gus went to the Secret Lake Saturday.
Mhm.
Lake X.
Lake X. It's kind of an anomaly. You go out there and you just catch something.
Wow.
But I'll break down our thinking and how I was like, all right, Gus, we're gonna follow this shoreline and go all the way around the lake.
And that's it.
That's it. That's all we're doing. And we're gonna catch one for sure. And we ended up catching 3. It was a pretty great evening. Little short evening. It was awesome.
How long were you guys out there?
Ooh, 5-6 hours.
Yeah, I think somewhere between 5 and 6, because I think we got out maybe around noon and maybe a little bit after, and then cut it around 5:30, 5:45 or so.
You guys get them on suckers, trolling, casting. How'd you guys wrangle them?
First 2 fish runs, suckers. Gus got a nice dandy with a big old blockhead.
Oh yeah,
2 hours
big noggin.
in. Shovelhead. She was something else. That was a good fish for that lake. Then I caught a little dinkerstein, and then Gus was twitching a crankbait up in the weeds and got another nice one.
Yeah, that was shortly. I looked back at the footage. It was shortly after I lost the one casting as well. I was about 5 minutes between each other, and I think 2.5 of those 5 minutes was me sharpening the hooks after the lost fish, and I'm glad I did, because it panned out in the end.
Where'd you guys notice most of the fish staged right now?
Most of them were on weed lines. We were catching them on and kind of over cribs on weed lines.
Yeah, the two
Um,
suckerfish were over, definitely relating a little bit to wood, off a drop off and a weed edge, and then the casting fish were just on a deep, more of a larger weed
yeah,
line, not too much of a drop off going on there, but so it was it was the anomaly lake, thinking start here and go around the edge around the entire lake.
What were you tweeching?
7-inch shallow-rater.
Oh,
I
nice.
got some tips from the guru himself. He was I was asking him, I think I was throwing a suic or something like that before, and I was gonna switch, and then Tyler just opened my box and took a look in there and was like, "Ooh, what's this?" and picks out a shallow-rater that was probably the first crankbait I ever bought from, I don't know, almost 10 years ago, and it's like a custom paint, and it's got some old features of the bait that they don't really make them like that anymore. And I'm like, sure, I'll put it on. And then I'm like, can you show me how to use it? He's like, yep. And I know you just put out one cast, kind of showed me how to use it, and I went with that, and that's how I got bit. So thank you for that. Thank you for giving me confidence with an old lure that I always have loved, but I could never get anything to go on it.
it was beautiful technique. I love getting people on the crankbaits because they're just underutilized and they catch a ton of fish.
You said it was an older model. I know that the new shallow raters are, still catch fish and whatnot, but what makes those older ones different? Was it just solely the paint job, or would they have a different rise, fall?
Those older ones, sometimes they have different rattles, but then they have different plastics, so their buoyancy is a little different. Before, I don't know, whoever owns it now and makes the baits, do they just run? They have a better wander, the older baits. And I don't know, I typically like that in shallow raters, the older models, because they seem to be more consistent.
Yeah, this old one that I have, I don't even know what kind of hooks I put on. I had to replace them because the old ones from way back in the day were rusted out. And this one actually has basically a neutral buoyancy and maybe a slight sink, mostly because I was using a giant rubber leader because I only brought out one rod to throw. So that was kind of I meant to use like probably an 8 to 10-inch straight wire leader, but it definitely didn't seem to inhibit the action too much. It had really good wander, and it pretty much just sat there and would dart side to side when I was twitching it. And I think
So
that was pretty deadly.
what
And it's got good rattles in it too.
so what's this technique that the guru was showing you?
I like people call it like a slackline twitch, but it really isn't that. You're basically twitching the crankbait, but you're reeling up all the slack as you're twitching it. So there really isn't no slack in the line. So that when a fish grabs it on the pause, you can feel it and set the hook. Because sometimes if you have too much slack in the line, you can have a fish grab it and get off, or grab it and then start to get off, and you set the hook and you get a poorly hooked fish and you lose it. That's kind of how I twitch it. I twitch it like that so I don't lose fish, but then I also twitch it about 50% of the way back to the boat, and then I straight retrieve it in. So if the fish didn't eat it on the twitch, it's gonna follow it in and hopefully crush it on the retrieve or the figure eight. And that seems to be a pretty nice like switch up for them. That works really well for me.
That's interesting because I'm just thinking back to our muskie bender weekend when we kind of stumbled upon like a 10-inch Jake bite that weekend, and it ended up getting us a few fish in the boat, but we missed a few. And now that I'm thinking back, they were all missed because I was still slackline popping it probably with 10 to 15 feet to go. And the few that we missed just came up and twitched when it should have paused, kind of ordeal. And I would be curious to think if I would have just straight retrieved it in after getting that fish's attention, if it would have just came in and smoked it, in that spot it tried to eat or whatnot, because that yeah, I mean, I guess the few that we caught were kind of out further in the cast for myself. And then, yeah, the ones we missed were all probably like after you're saying you would have just switched to a straight retrieve. And I'm going to have to give that a whirl if I'm able to get back out there this year, next year. Definitely for spring too, because I know we throw a lot of crankbaits in the spring. So that's interesting. I have to give that a whirl.
Yeah, it's like if you switch it back to the boat and a fish hasn't eaten it by the time you get it back to the boat, the chances of it eating it, in my opinion, are a lot lower. I like to switch it up in the middle because you're kind of forcing it to commit in a sense, because it's like, oh, that wounded fish that I've been following and kind of thinking about eating now isn't wounded, it's going to get away and we'll lose out on a meal. So let's eat it now. That's kind of how I think about that. Straight retrieve it and try to convert those picky eaters.
Yeah, it's down into the mind of a muskie. Brian, you've been pretty hot on the crankbaits over the past few years. How do you like working them? Is it the mindless work where you're not thinking about it and then you end up catching one, or do
You
you
mean
got
the natural athletic ability? Maybe, but I have lost a fair amount, like in that middle portion of the cast. And like right when I death pause it, I'll be reeling up slack and I'll like see a flash that T-bones it. So I definitely think I need to do a better job of reeling up my slack while I'm slackline twitching. So I might need a guru demonstration sometime down the road. But yeah, I remember we had that one really good spring with twitch baits, crankbaits, and those were just like super hard and erratic twitches. And like if you weren't like just slapping that rod in the water, like getting that bait to dart everywhere, they didn't want anything to do with it. So I don't know, definitely figuring out what kind of crankbait bite they're on. I feel like sometimes they do want more of a slow sweep, but I love a erratic one.
They seem to like the erratic twitching, even though we had, what do we have, Tyler? 48-degree water or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 48. And I wasn't really giving it too much of a pause in between and doing a lot of double pops. And my straight retrieve at the end was fast. Neither of them hit in the straight retrieve. The one that got off, I think, hit after 2 quick twitches. I think it was really early in the cast. And then I think looking back at the footage, the one that actually got to the boat, the nicer fish, ate just as I was straight retrieving after some twitches way out in the cast, so that I could pretty much feel that fish as soon as it hit. And I had a good hook set, where the first one I wasn't expecting it because I just learned this technique and I didn't know it very well. And but no, I'm definitely going to utilize that a ton. And there's definitely some days, I think Brian or Maxie maybe alluded to it, where like they want the crankbait where you're ripping as hard as you can. And that's kind of where almost it's tough with the 10-inch Jake. I don't know if this technique would be very good with a 9, 10 plus inch crankbait. Unless, have you had any luck with that, Tyler? Or
Oh yeah,
tips on that?
yeah. You can use this technique with any size crankbait.
Okay.
I run a lot of 10-inch slammers in Minnesota. Twitching, you just have to, instead of using your wrist, you're using your whole body. So like with that
Okay.
7-inch shallow-rater, you're using a lot of like arm action and like your wrist. And if you're going to use a big crankbait that's 10 inches, I'm using my whole arm and my body to twitch it, do that twitching action, because I have a big rod for that. And I'm able to get the same exact type of action and get fish to commit out here on those bigger baits doing that. It takes a little bit getting used to. You got to master the smaller baits first with that technique, and then move up to the bigger ones and try to convert that way.
So now that we have a good amount of the technique going here, I'm just gonna randomly ask a question to you, Tyler. What are the kind of days? I guess we'll just go with fall. Is it just like any fall day that you like twitching a crankbait, maybe over rubber, or how are you making that decision? I was gonna ask about summer, but I don't know if we need to talk about that right now.
I'm usually switching back between both because you never quite truly know exactly what they're gonna want, because it's fall and they typically want something a little bit slower. And sometimes those erratic, slower baits can make them eat, and each has their own application. So I'll be kind of I'll be switching back and forth throughout the day to see which ones they want on good spots that I know hold fish.
Mhm.
So like my favorite rubber bait's a tube, and I'll be throwing, say, I don't know, a 7-inch shallow rater. And I'll just one spot I'll try a shallow rater, and one spot I'll try a tube that I know that absolutely hold fish, and see what they like. I kind of just go by. I more so go by like what I'm feeling and what I'm seeing, not necessarily like, oh, today's like these conditions. It's going to be this exact bait. It's more like, oh, I'm going to go out. It's going to be one of these 2 baits or 3 baits, and then I'm going to try them all out and see which one gives me a response, and then I can adjust from there accordingly.
There you go. I definitely like that approach. I never like to be, hard fast rules any day. I mean, there's definitely days where I got that tingling every once in a while where it's like, yeah, we're starting with this bait, and like that person's not going to take that bait off because it's just red hot right now. But more times than not, you got to switch up from the pattern that you had the day before. I mean, we even saw that on Sunday this past weekend. We got a little humbled that morning, although we did go to not Lake Anomaly and went to Big Fish Low Density and really swung for the fences. But I do like your philosophy on that, Tyler, where you just want to maybe the first day back, or I don't know when the last time you were up north fishing, but you just want to catch fish
Mm-hmm.
and just get the skunk out, and then you go swing for the fences. And
Yep.
if you get skunked, it's like, yeah, whatever. We just had a great day yesterday and on some action water.
Yeah, I've come up with that philosophy of many years of, you know, oh, I got this one weekend. I'm gonna go swing for the fences right away because I'm just itching to catch a muskie. Then you get your butt kicked, and then Sunday turns out to be like the worst day for fishing that week, and you don't catch anything on the lake that have a better chance of catching something. So, yeah, I like to go somewhere where it's nearly guaranteed right away. Get the skunk out, be like, all right, caught a couple fish, then let's go try to catch a big dog. And sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't, but you still go home with something.
Yeah, I mean, catching fish is fun. That's for damn sure. I mean, we ran into that, on our muskie bender weekend where we kind of switched up that philosophy reverse, and obviously we were pretty down in the dumps on Saturday after trying that out and really not having much success. And then Sunday went to action water, and luckily we're greeted with some really good weather and all that. But I mean, yeah, especially when you're out there in the fall, like you're all bundled up, it's typically cold. It's just nice to break up the day a little bit. It's harder
Mhm.
to swing for the giant fish at times, sometimes in the fall. It kind of gets labeled as like that time of year where you want to go out to like your big clear deep water systems and try to catch a 40-pounder. But at the same time, like that bite can be really good on those lakes that just had recently turned over. And you could be missing out like you guys had on a 3 4 5 fish day, on some of that action water. And if you get a few of those fish in upper 30s low 40s for northern Wisconsin, that's a great day. So yeah, I was glad to hear that you guys pieced together a good day. And then, obviously Sunday was a little bit humbling, but I mean, you never know. And that lake has treated, both you guys well in the past. So there's no reason why you wouldn't have, gone and expected it to be like that. It's just kind of what happens in the fall. I feel like some days are good, some days are just really, really tough, and that's something I know, Gus, you're kind of dealing with right now up there. It's like some days they just don't even feel like they're trying to get a meal. I don't know.
Sometimes it may be good, sometimes it may be shit.
Yeah.
Tyler, is
Yeah,
that
that's how it's
is that
been.
your last trip of the season for muskie? Or are you gonna try and get out in the metro at all?
That is it. I've got a lot of stuff going on in my life at the moment. I'm not gonna talk about it just yet, but got deer hunting coming up and decided to just put the boat away. And yeah, that was my last hurrah of 2023, which was nice to end with 3 fish in the boat. That was fantastic.
Yeah, that was just a great day overall, Tyler, and I'm really happy that you got to show me that lake. You guided me on some fish. Appreciate that so very much. Had a great day there, and although it was just a short afternoon trip, it was pretty awesome. So, I think we should maybe dive into some late fall stories. Maybe some catches or lost fish or bad storms or who knows, anything like that. I don't know if anybody's got something on the top of their head,
I
lay
gotta
it
go.
out there.
Gary, yeah, start us off.
All right. So this was maybe my second year of muskie fishing. So I'm extra green. This is like 3 boats ago. My dad and I are out, 3 lakes chain. It is mid-November and it is raining. It is cold. It's maybe 15 degrees. It's just miserable. And we're banging suckers off rock humps. Instead of on bobbers, we're kind of jigging them off rock humps. And
How
yeah.
big were the suckers?
Oh, they're about 12 inches. And if you put enough lead on there, you can bang them on bottom. And I noticed that I remember noticing on my terrible Eagle fish finder that there's a bunch of stuff just tight to rocks, like nothing was suspended over them. So we're dropping suckers way down there. And my dad hooks up with a 42 and he kind of just lets it grab it, I guess. I don't remember seeing him set the hook too well. And so this fish gets all the way to the net, and I'm maybe 15 at the time, all the way to the net. I'm about to net this fish, and it lets go and falls back into the lake. My dad yells some profanity, which at that time I had never heard. And, some crazy things are said, and then my dad, in a fit of rage, takes the sucker and slams it as hard as he can when it was attached to the rig at the surface of the water and creates this big splash, and that fish comes up and swallows that whole sucker.
No way.
And then I net that fish, and it was at the time my dad's biggest 3 lakes fish was 42 inches.
Oh my God.
What?
Dude, it was so crazy. We're just like, it was super low, and then a millisecond later, it was like the ultimate high.
Some days they just you just can't keep them off the hook.
Yep.
They want to
So I think the takeaway from that story is if you have a fish up to the boat on a sucker, you just take the sucker out of the water and smack it against
Yeah,
full on,
Gronk spike.
Gronk spike it
Yeah,
top of the lake, get them fired up.
It's actually a legitimate technique that I've talked to some Minnesota guides. If they see a muskie following their sucker, they'll take a bait or another sucker that they have in the boat, and they'll slap it on the surface of the water behind that fish, and that fish, more often than not, will turn around and grab it.
That is interesting because we've had
another technique
few times where you've had fish just sitting behind that boat side sucker where you can see them clear as day.
Yep.
And it doesn't look like they're going to do anything. So, I mean, at that point, you might as well just try anything. I mean, it's not,
Yep.
All right, Brian, I want to run this one back now that we're talking about being a little green in the fall fishing thing, because so I'll set the stage a little bit. The first year Gus, Brian, and I ever set out to do, I was getting some Snapchat reminders on my phone the other day. The first year we ever set out to do like fall fishing guru, we were so under equipped. I remember I went to a local bait shop and bought a black and orange tail mag dog, and at the time I thought it was like the biggest freaking bait of all.
No, it was a reg dog.
No, it was a mag dog.
It was the alpha mag dog.
It was the alpha mag dog. So it had the pounder tail and
really?
the mag size body. And we were like lobbing that thing around all day because we didn't have the right equipment to throw it. Gus was trying to throw a Medusa and ended up breaking his rod.
Yep.
Because the bait was so heavy. The bait shop we had been always going to was out of like suckers that day. So we got a walleye chub and put it on a quick strike rig and dragged it behind the boat pretty much upside down the entire day. Needless to say, no fish were caught that day. This was a long time ago, so I'm just kind of chuckling at, kind of where we're at now. And so if anyone's listening to this, like, and you're at the beginning stages of fall fishing, like, trust me, we know where that is. And it's, you got some time to figure it out, because I think the next year when we tried it again, we were like, all right, we're going we're going to be more equipped. We finally got some new rods that can handle some bigger baits,
But it was
we,
still like the rods still weren't right. Like the sucker rod was ancient, wasn't it?
Gus, what
It
were
was
we
a
running
s-
for the sucker rod? Because it was the reel that barely even worked, right?
Yeah.
It was a 6-foot medium heavy Fenwick, maybe a 6.6. I don't know, something like that, and a like a 4.9 gear ratio round reel with a clicker.
Yeah. It was pretty wild.
And
And not a
so
great drag at all. Like that drag locked down would still slip.
So
Mm.
we run into Tadpole's, which is a local bait shop in Eagle River, and we're talking with Tadpole that morning, and we're like, we're getting the suckers. We're like, all right, here's how you rig it up and all this shit, and like we're kind of getting the lowdown, and we're kind of like, where would you fish on the Eagle River chain right now? And he's like, oh, I would go right here. And here he pointed out a few spots to us and kind of pointed us in the right direction. We're like, oh, we've never fished those spots because at this point we were just mostly
He
fishing in the spring or summer.
he got our mind set on cribs. I just remember being like, oh,
He
like
said wood.
fall, they're gonna move to these cribs and wood, and like he's like, find them, you'll find the fish. We're like, all right, went straight to where we knew cribs were.
So we like throw the stuff down and we start kind of roaming around. And it probably wasn't more than like, I don't know, 45 minutes into the day. I just remember it clear as day, the back sucker rod that we had kind of synced this bobber up to just takes down, bobber slips out of the knot that Gus had tied, and the drag just starts screaming. And we're like, well, who's gonna take it? And Brian, I think, was up at the time.
Well, we did
Gus-
a sorry, I didn't mean to butt in. I got two things. We did a rotation, I think. Remember we did like an
Yeah.
hourly
Right, yeah.
rotation.
Right. Yeah. We did
And
like an
then-
hourly rotation.
And I remember when we first did it, we'd use those 3-inch foam bobbers, which I don't use anymore. And I know there was another story of a fish that I used to do like a certain knot where if a fish grabbed a sucker, it would slip out so that bobber would just float away. It'd be free line, so you don't have to worry about like the tension of the bobber and maybe the fish letting go. And I think that's what happened. We lost a couple bobbers doing that. Not a great idea.
You
No,
have to go
yeah.
chase them down on a windy day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, not ideal.
But that morning was like pure glass. There was like not a ripple on the water. It's cloudy. I think it was like during that first big cool down in the fall. And I just remember Brian was up and he was like, all right, like, what do I do? What do I do? And we're trying to like, be like, all right, here's kind of like what we're thinking. We didn't really know.
I remember, I'm pretty sure we like it ran with it. We tried to like get over the top of it, and like a minute goes by because then like it stops moving. We're kind of sitting directly over it in 15 feet of water or whatever. And I'm getting antsy because I'm like, yeah, I'm not just gonna sit here and like wait for it to turn or whatever. I think it was finally just like, I mean, if you feel him, like yam him.
Yeah, there was no buildup. All of a sudden, Brian just gives this like a Hercules set because he's like, oh, you've seen all the videos on YouTube and stuff. And he just like yams this fish as hard as he can. And like right away, it's just like, huh, boom, it just goes right back down. We're like, oh my God, that's a giant fish. And at the time, we had not really caught many fish. I mean, really over 40 inches.
That was the first ever sucker fish in the boat, right?
First ever sucker fish.
Yeah.
It was like a 45 off the chain.
It's a good fish.
But to add to this story, and why that 45 as an asterisk is there was we had no bump board or like measuring
No
tape.
We put up against a rod and like I think
Yeah,
that
we-
was it.
Put it up against a 6-foot sucker rod and put a little nick in the rod and then went to measure it later. So pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
And then I think that same night we went out to night fish because like we were kind of running high off that, nice sucker fish for the first time. Like, oh, fall fishing's it. And then later that night we went out, fished it like at least an hour into dark. And earlier that day we had just went into town and grabbed we each grabbed one new bait. And I had grabbed this, what we call Buzz Lightyear patterned. What is that one called?
Shallow invader.
Shallow
It
invader.
was like a glow in the dark shallow invader.
Blue with like neon glowing dots.
It was so
Like-
ugly. And it's
Like, you
still
know what?
so
If we're
ugly.
night fishing, this is it right here. So we went out and I mean, I don't know what time it was. We'd been out there for at least an hour into dark. I'm tired from fishing all day. Just casting this shallow invader. I don't know if I was working it or not, and I just got crushed halfway back into the cast. And it was another like estimate
Mid
43
40s.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, just I think we put it up against the rod and it was like it's like an inch shorter than the last one or something like that. Or like it didn't quite, it's still a giant fish. That picture's so cool.
Yeah, that picture looks way bigger than the other one just because it's at night. Yeah, that was our first, like, I guess, suck you into the whole mall or fall muskie fishing scene.
That same day I caught my first rubber fish too on a Medusa.
Yeah, that was fairly shortly after my sucker fish, right? Same
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, I looked back at the timestamps and it was like 20 minutes. It was like 2 or 1 dock down from
Yeah.
that.
That was like before we even knew tight bite windows were like a thing. We're like, you can't catch a muskie if you just caught one. They don't
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they don't even live in the same area. Like, you might as well just get out of here. It's like the only fish
Freaking
that's
out.
around. So I mean, it's just so funny to like look back and think about how just like naive, we were when we were out there doing that, and ended up putting together probably will go down as I don't have we ever had a better day on the chain than that
Epic
single
3
day?
Well, if I finish that day with, I think, 90 inches roughly of fish, I could have turned it into potentially
Ooh.
140 on Sunday. But
That was back when you
yeah.
really hated doing figure eights.
Yeah.
That was a tough sight to see up there with you. In the
Figure
front of the
eights were
boat.
pointless until that fish had to teach me.
They always teach you the tough lessons. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that since nobody else was there.
I think I've brought it up before, but I think we talked about it in an early pod. But
Yeah, we definitely did.
yeah, just Sunday, don't want to go home, just kind of going through the motions, and this big blonde girl shows up right as my bait's starting to come out of the water, and she waved goodbye pretty quick. So that
That
was
fish
that.
wanted to eat so
Like
bad.
our last spot of the day, like, I mean, crunch time fish, and it was a giant.
I've never
Yeah.
seen another fish in that spot ever
Never.
since. That fish is so big.
Well,
Yeah, that thing's probably 60 by now.
I would say I don't know if it would be dead. I mean, we have no idea exactly how big it was. It was such a quick moment, but I think
Like
at
40.
the time, for sure, it was the biggest chain fish we've ever seen. And there's a chance we've maybe seen some more larger ones, but I don't know. That was a top end chain fish, without a doubt, which is a bummer.
yeah, they're elusive. They're not easy. I mean, I know Guru fishes, obviously he's fishes a lot of the Three Lakes chain, and we spend a lot of time learning on the Eagle River chain, and there's some great bodies of water. I mean, it's a great place to learn how to musky fish. Guru, did you spend most of those high school years fall fishing on the Three Lakes chain pretty much,
Yeah.
or were you exploring even back then too?
Back then, I was not into exploring. My parents would not let me take my dad's truck, or when it became my truck, out anywhere past the Three Lakes chain.
Now you're
I
carving.
apologize. My dog is hitting the squeaker toy because she wants my attention. Yeah, at that time it was mainly just the lake that we lived on, and then the Three Lakes chain. Occasional when my dad would come up and let me go on a different lake. So it was a lot of just learning that at that time and fighting the parents, being like, I want to go to other lakes and explore.
Well, I mean, there's a lot on the Three Lakes side. I mean, like I've said in the past, we got a lot of listeners from like the Minnesota area and, Illinois. And I don't know how much they're familiar with kind of this neck of the woods, but you've been on both systems. Like what do you like? I'll ask this to, I guess, you and Gus, because you guys both spend time on both systems, but like, what do you guys think the difference is between the two? Mostly, do you think they fish similar ish, or is there some stark differences between both chains?
I have for sure like one larger difference. I'd say the Eagle River side blooms up more and has more weeds, and Three Lakes has a lot more deeper structure. Big time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more lakes too. So like Eagle River chain is pretty much a lot of the humps and points, and if you look on the map, anything sub 7 feet, it's pretty much weeds. I mean, there's some rocks, not many. I don't know about sand points. There's cribs, there's man-made cribs, but there's not like broken timber, whereas the Three Lakes has weeds, has a lot of sandbars, sand, humps, a lot of cribs littered everywhere, a lot of rock, and a lot of more undulation with each lake. Each lake is a little more interesting than the Eagle River chain for the most part.
Yeah, that that's very well said. I'll also add is the Eagle River chain is significantly has more boat traffic than the Three Lakes chain.
Yeah.
Um, the more annoying rich people live on Eagle River chain than Three Lakes chain.
It's only getting worse too.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Come to Minnetonka. This one's king daddy of them all.
Oh my God. I was out there this summer. I couldn't believe that people were even fishing.
Yeah, it's people are like, oh, go at night. Nah, it's just as bad. But yeah, I think those are the two main differences, pressure and just structure and differences. I've always preferred the Three Lakes chain simply because of the variety and like less jet skis pissing me off.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's just closer and more convenient to fish when I was younger. So I guess I just kind of developed a more taste for it, the Three Lakes chain.
Yeah, I feel that. All right, I want to get back into some more stories because I feel like this day we're just kind of doing a little bit of revisionist, type history, fishing lessons here and kind of what we've taken from some of the days we've had in the past. But Gus, I want to talk to you about this day. Brian was with us as well. I'm sure Guru can probably riff off of this story. So in the fall, obviously the goal is when you're going out there, and if you're not on, quote unquote action waters, you're trying to put that one big fish in the net. And a lot of times on those days, it feels like it really can come down to like one opportunity for whatever reason, tighter bite windows that eat probably less amount of times throughout the day. If I had to probably speculate maybe on the reason why. But Gus, Brian, and I went out to this lake, A1 water a few years back. And we had a day, and this is kind of like a good lesson learned on sticking it out because we got out there early in the morning and really early on, we had a sucker go down. I luckily unluckily it was my turn at that point in time. And actually a few lessons can be learned from this day. Sucker rod goes down again on a big system, big fish water. So the heart's pumping pretty good. And I set into this fish and it feels like an absolute tank. And after about 2 to 3 seconds, the line just completely snaps. Well, it turns out the rig snapped and the sucker rig harness snapped. And it was super unfortunate. And at the time, we didn't even have a backup sucker rig. So I had to drive all the way back into town and get a new one. Well, those guys stayed out and fished. And then we went the next, 6-7 hours without even sniffing another fish until Gus, you can kind of take over from here. But
yeah, that was tough. I definitely highly recommend after every single time catching a fish or missing a fish or anything on a sucker rig to double check it. One single fray in one of those wire leaders, just change it out. I don't even mess. That's what we have figured out, and knock on wood, we're doing good since that. So yeah, like Max said, long time with nothing. Goes to show on those fall bite windows. I think this was early October-ish, so water was relatively still warm, but I mean those bite windows start to tighten up in September even. And I know you, Max, got a smaller fish on a regular Medusa, and that's when we kind of finally felt like we were doing something right again. I think it was in a spot we've maybe never successfully fished really on that lake. Not that we really even knew that lake very well at the time. And I think we moved, and I want to say I moved a fish on a tube because I just, it was like that whole 7 whatever hours of nothing was just hard for us at the time, and moving that fish was pretty awesome. And then we kind of rolled into this little more randomly oriented area of weeds in a bay, kind of. And these two guys in a boat pass us with sucker rods out. And we have suckers as well. All three of us are casting. These two guys are not casting. And they come, relatively close enough. I don't think it was very windy either, and it didn't matter. And we just started chopping up with them. And we asked them, how are you doing? They were like, not good, not good at all. They were just sitting down, trolling suckers, and it looked like they're going kind of fast. They were just pretty much giving up. And Max, do you remember like what day they were on or something? They said something else. I don't know.
They were on a few day muskie hunt the late fall looking for a big fish. And yeah, I just cracked up because they were just like, we're dead tired, we're old, we can't cast big lures anymore. And they were just like going by us with the sucker rods out there, just kicking their feet up, having a good time. And it was like, I mean, not in their wake, but pretty much damn near right over the spot that they just went
with the
through with the suckers. Gus just gets freaking annihilated by, at the time, his biggest Northwoods fish.
Yeah, that was a very, very large specimen for Wisconsin, and girth wise, I would say it was thick through the tail, and that one hammered a suic. And I remember vividly that it was like it slacklined me. It must have hit it like so hard from the side and behind that it just pushed the whole bait forward. And I think I don't know if I just went into the next pop and set the hook, or if I felt it and then tried to set the hook. I can't exactly remember that part of it. It was a musky blackout for sure. I think Max got the net, Brian got the video camera, and you were able to start it because that thing fought for, quite a bit. And it was dogging me. I mean, I was on basically my knees at one point because I was just I was doing, I think, a free spool, but I think it was still just like just kicking my ass. And that thing was going nuts. And when I went in the net, we were going nuts. I mean, that was just
right at sunset.
Yeah, that was right at sunset. Really not too, maybe like an hour, or maybe less than an hour after Max got that one in the Medusa. So that was, another relatively tight bite window, because I think we stayed until sunset or maybe just after and didn't get anything. But that fish was special for sure.
I just had one fall story pop into my head, kind of similar to Guru's with slapping a sucker back in the water and a fish eating it. But I believe this was a couple of years ago, maybe beginning of November. I could be wrong, but we were fishing a lake outside of Vilas County. And I don't remember if we were kind of in between spots or like somebody just sat down for a minute to catch their breath. And I think it was a mag dog was like its tail was barely touching the water. Like the rod was set down in the boat. The bait was pretty much out of the water. And all of a sudden you just hear like a commotion and like the fish's head hit the boat.
Wait, which one was this? Was this the one when we had suckers out as well?
I think it was then, yeah.
Was it the one that hit the mag dog I had?
Yeah, the rod was set down.
Yeah, that thing that was in the water for like 20 minutes, dude. I was eating a lunch or something like that.
Like I mean, maybe an inch or two of his tail was dangling in the water. Rod's completely laid down in the boat, and all of a sudden we just hear like this commotion and a whack against the boat. We all kind of froze, and like you see the rod kind of drift over. We're like, oh shit! Like I think you grabbed the rod, Gus.
Oh yeah,
and there was right. Like you didn't catch that, did you?
No, I tried to set the hook. That was like a 40 or something, and it didn't even want to touch a live. We had two suckers out the back, and it ate a mag dog just
out of the water. Mag dog.
Yeah, just chilling. Tail dangling in the water a little bit, and it decided to just smoke it and almost take the whole rig I had.
That was one of the funniest things.
So lessons learned: check your rig, stick it out through the day. And if all goes to shit, just dangle a mag dog on the side of the boat.
Yeah, don't put too much of it in the water though.
Don't think too hard in the fall, everybody. Just go around the lake.
Guru, have you ever had a fish eat a bait when your hands were not on the rod? Because I know I have at least once too.
Once, yeah. I've had it happen twice, but once without where I wasn't touching the rod. I caught both.
What?
Yeah. The first time that happened to me was sometime in July. I was taking some buddies out that had been from high school that had been fishing for muskies for years and had never ever caught one. And I was like, "Oh, I'll take you out to Lake X because I know we're gonna get something. I can get you a muskie, your first muskie." And in like the first 30 minutes of fishing, I set my rod down to tell this long story. And I have like a double 10 hanging over the side of a boat. And all of a sudden the fish just jumps up, maybe like a 32, and just straight up grabs the bait, hooks itself, and the rod starts going. And I grab it and just set the hook. And everyone's like, "What the heck?" Like, I had to convince those guys to net the fish for me because they're so in shock and like pissed. They're like, "It can't be that easy. Come on, man." I'm like, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do this."
Isn't it funny how like you go through hours and hours of grinding for these fish, and it's like at the end of the day, when they just want to be dumb and eat, they're just gonna be dumb and eat.
Yeah, sometimes it's just like, gosh, you think they're just so intelligent, and then they do something dumb like that, and you're like, "Wow,
We
okay."
just gotta stoop down to their level a little bit more often.
I mean, the one for me this year was when we were fishing a deeper water with some sandgrass, and like, I was just throwing out a bait and letting it sink, and then ripping it back up off the bottom through the wheat through the sandgrass. And my dumbass, was a little thirsty, and I throw out my bait. I just set the rod on the base of the boat, just go to take a sip of my drink, no hands on the rod at all, and I pick up the rod, and there's a fish there.
That you thought were weeds at first.
And of
then
course, I lose it.
And then the rod started, thumping.
So who
You're like,
knows how
"Oh,
long
shit."
that fish had it in its mouth for before I even realized it. I mean, I was sitting there taking like a few swigs out of my drink.
Golly.
Yeah, it
I
was a
had one.
tough time.
I had a fish once grab a bucktail as it was falling after I got like a backlash when I was young, and I get this backlash, and it maybe took 15 minutes to undo. And I start reeling it in. I'm like, "Gosh, I got all these heavy weeds on there." And I'm like ripping this thing and trying to get this like big weed ball coming in. Like, man, these weeds are just so heavy. What the heck? And then it gets to the boat. There's not a weed. It's like a 38-inch muskie that T-boned my bucktail that has no hooks. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, holy shit." And then it drops the bucktail before I can do anything. I'm like, "No."
Oh my God.
Yeah.
These freaking fish.
Stuff like that sticks with you forever because it's so stupid.
Oh, 100%. Like, it's just sometimes it's just ridiculous at how easy slash hard it is to catch these fish. Like, it makes you really rack your brain. I feel like that's why people get so addicted to it, because it's like there's just no formula for it at times. I mean, there's definitely things that you can do to increase your chances, but you're probably sitting there listening to these stories being like, yeah, I mean, people probably have their own where, they're grinding for 6-7 hours and then somebody does something stupid and they either have a shot at a fish or catch one. And it's just like, I mean, how can you predict that? I mean, it's just happenstance at that point. I feel like,
I don't think you can at all.
no, I mean, you can't purposely backlash your rod every time and let your bait sit on the bottom for 15 minutes. And then
It's not sustainable.
It's not a typical recipe for success, but it happens. But yeah, I mean, it's and it's been an interesting fall so far. I feel like, Gus, like, you've been out a bunch, and I feel like some days have been good, some days have been bad. I mean, for the people that are still going to be getting out there, I mean, we're kind of winding the season down here, but for the people that are still getting out there, I want to hear from you and the Guru on, like, just some late season fishing kind of tactics or theories, that you guys might have to try to put a few extra fish in the boat here before the ice gets on the water. I mean, what types of lakes are you guys thinking about? Guru, pretend you were living up in Vilas County. What types of lakes are you guys targeting? What are you guys doing? At this point, are you still hanging suckers? Are you trolling? Are you doing a combination of both? Are you hitting action water? Are you hitting deep, clear lakes? Like, what's kind of the game plan at this point in time with a few weeks left?
Short and easy. I'm probably gonna fish big fish water from now on. I mean, if I was, it's deer season for me, but if I was fishing in November, I'd hit solely big fish water, and I'd focus on stuff that has like a lot of rock structure and a lot of deep breaks with a lot of trees falling on the sides, so that I could drag suckers and I control, so I could do both. It just that time of year, I'm not casting. I refuse to cast, and I'm gonna drag baits or drag suckers, and I'm just gonna kind of focus on that stuff that has access to deep water. I'm not really gonna focus on anything shallow or weeds. By that time, a lot of the weed lines are kind of gone. I'm focused on rocks and deep rock humps, and because turnovers happen, so they can be really anywhere. So deep trolling, 15, 20 feet down on some of those clear water big fish lakes. That's what I would be doing if I was fishing up there all November.
Have you ever tried to drag anything besides a sucker before?
I have not, but I've heard other people using, like, I'm not sure if this is legal in Wisconsin, but I've heard people use pike or like rainbow trout. But I've never tried anything besides a sucker.
Yeah, I think to an extent they're legal. I think pike, it's just you got to look at the local body regulations on if they have like a size limit or if it's like 3 pike per person any size or whatnot, or if there's a slot or a minimum or something like that. I know some places
And it's got to be from the
18
same
inch or something like that.
system. It's got to be from the same system,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, same system as well. So that's why I was a little confused about the rainbow trout thing. Like if you could buy them and I guess I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my head around that because I know you can buy suckers from the store and then go bring them anywhere.
Maybe they count them as like bait fish, and that's why they don't maybe
What
care.
about a rainbow trout? We don't really have that many.
What about a lake trout? You go to a big body of water, catch you a little lake trout, and hook that sucker up.
Big old fatty out there, fat big trout. Oh man, some big girl's gonna want to eat that.
I mean, my thing though is like if you went to a bait shop and you bought some trout, and at the end of the day, like you had one or two get off, and if they're over ambitious, little spunky trouts, together, all of a sudden they find each other and fall in love, and next thing you know, you got a flourishing rainbow trout population in a lake that never had it before.
I don't know if that's a bad thing.
No, I don't think so.
I don't know.
That's called bucket biology.
Yeah, that's coming from a guy that has never dealt in the biology world before, so I don't think I'm going like very simplistic Adam and Eve type stuff here. But yeah, I don't know, Gus. I would look into that though, because I mean, like we were talking to JVR last week. If you're able to find a way to catch some ciscos or be able to hang some trout on those deeper, clear lakes, that got me really excited to try that out because, we spent a lot of days having suckers behind the boat with, we had some luck, but it took a lot of time in order to get those few bites on those Cisco based lakes. So I'd be curious to know if your odds go up exponentially hanging something different than a sucker.
Yeah, I would. I'd be curious too. I know. Was that you, Tyler, that told me that, or somebody told me that recently after the JVR pod that Cisco's don't really live very long at all when you rig them up.
I did not know that.
Okay, then somebody else from us for here told me that recently, but I'd still be curious. I'm sure we'd have to get a couple. You don't just catch one and call it good. Like a sucker at this time of year, you can re-rig for days on end because they're just gonna survive. The water temps are in the 40s.
How does one catch a Cisco? How does one catch a Cisco?
I was
do it with your
told
bare
by
hands?
some people using netting at night when they're shallow.
We had
Seems
our buddy Grape gave us some insider intel. I think he said a worm and a bob, so we can try that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Grape.
I think if you listen to him, you probably won't catch too many fish. Shout out, Grape.
Shout out, Grape.
If it's a purple and black double dog bite, he's gonna outfish every person in the entire country. But if it's not,
that man be going through it. I'm not sure. you can keep a pike alive very well in a harness too, if that is legal. In fact, like I don't know. I mean, you catch like a 17-inch pike, that thing's belly up coming into the boat. So I don't know how you're keeping it, head up when it's on a sucker rig for any longer than 30 minutes.
I
They're
think it stays
resilient.
alive. All right. I know last year, one day I was out with our dad, Max, and I think one of the suckers died, and I caught a dink pike. And I'm like, I'm just gonna rig it up. Didn't catch anything that day, but the pike stayed alive just fine for hours.
Hmm.
And
Is it
it was
spunky?
at first it was very spunky, like more so than a sucker, and then
I
it
would
was very
imagine.
docile. And I was checking on it a few times to see if it was like belly up or sideways or something, and it never was. It was moving and grooving.
God, poor pike, man. Be tough
We'd,
life.
we'd gain a lot of pan fisherman friends if we started rigging up pike on quick strike rigs. They're already calling for you to kill everyone you catch. So
Yeah. What about
Yeah.
muskies though too?
yeah, that's true.
So Gus, same question to you then that I asked the guru. What are you going to be focusing on here at the last? I mean, how long do you think we got? Realistically, you're up there. I mean, Guru's just up there. Where are we at with everything? I mean, are we talking like a few weeks left? I know Brian and I, we got the weekend of the 18th to go up there and try to go after a giant, but I'm feeling a little bit skeptical. It seems cold. Like it's going to be real cold over the next 2 weeks here.
Yeah, just gotta hope for above freezing nights. That's all, or wind. One of those two will keep the ice off the majority of the lakes. But today's the last day of Spooktober, and I got off the water later this afternoon with mid 40-degree water temp, basically.
Oof.
For surface temp in the basin, not counting anything else there. And yeah, that's pretty chilly. That dropped quick since the last cold spell, but that was going to be known. These lakes are wrapping up their turnover process, and they're becoming not stratified like they were. It's going in the other direction. But no, I don't know. I mean, I definitely want to spend as much time as I can on trophy water, and definitely going to be breaking out a lot of the trolling gear, especially if it's a very cold day and it's very windy, and boat control with suckers would be next to impossible, especially if you want to go to a certain system and that one spot you want to fish is in the wind, so you might have to troll it instead of cast it or something like that, or troll it instead of cast and sucker fish it. But I don't know. I think at any point, any given day, any of the four options that I'll be doing are going to be viable, because just today I was out and had one opportunity, missed it, trolled a bunch, put suckers out a bunch, I jigged a bunch, and the one that I missed a mag dog boat side on the cast. I mean, it was after a however long rubber lure instead of trolling lures zipping by their face or live meat, a jigging lure they didn't want anything to do with, and for some reason they just went after the casting lure, and that's not always going to be the case every single day. So I'm gonna stay flexible. It's tough now because the bite windows are so short and the days are so short, and it feels like your lake choice is ridiculously important. Like it goes from almost a guarantee 0 bite, maybe 1 bite day, to like you're going to get opportunities based on the lake you pick. And it seems like I don't know where my timing is off, but I'm hitting all these lakes at all the wrong times, because I know there's people out there, catching fish on certain days, and then I go out there and get my, ass whooped. I'm like, well, what I do wrong? And I don't know. Sometimes it just seems like lake choice, lake dependent. Because I know on Saturday when we did really well, Tyler. I know a ton of other people did really well, and that was the day of the full moon. And I did hear from other people that they didn't do exactly well, and I know some people are on action water, and they just got sucker lookers, and that was it. like nothing ate. And it's like, well, what was the difference? Like that's a day with that weather that we had on Saturday where you think you could go to any lake, drop a sucker in and get smoked. So
Mhm.
I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. This late fall thing is tough. I don't know if it's best to just like pick 3 lakes, hammer the crap out of them and just learn them and know when and just
Or just
hope
wait
and
for them to
pray.
turn on.
Yeah, wait for that one day for them to turn on, or do you keep, having I don't know. I'm my head's messing with me on thoughts on where to go each and every day. It's getting a little harder and harder at this time of year to like choose a body of water. And I think you gotta just stick to your guns and like stick it out. There's no running a gun in. There's no switching bodies of water midway through the day is tough now this time of
But
year.
by the time our next planned weekend, 3 weekends from now, rolls around, it might be a little easier to choose because there might only be a select few lakes open.
That's
I
better,
was,
honestly. That'll
I
make
know,
it
I know, I
way
don't hate that
easier.
either. But looking ahead, you got highs in the 40s through this weekend, and then for the next 10 days after this weekend, it's like high of 33 to 35, the low of 25. So we just got to pray for some sun, I think.
Oh yeah, the small lakes are going to be locking up within the next 2 weeks for sure. I still think there's plenty of time with those large lakes.
Or the rivers might be getting into our river mode.
Yeah, rivers. We could find rivers. We might have to, take a drive south. I don't know if we've ever dabbled
Come to
in
my neck of the woods.
yeah, yeah, we could go down to GB and go get in line, I'm sure, on a Saturday and
Guru,
Sunday.
Guru, you ever fish many rivers up in Vilas County?
Or
I fished
anywhere in
the
Wisconsin.
I fished the Fox. So I lived in Green Bay for a while, but
Hmm.
I fished the Wisconsin River up in Vilas quite a bit. I mean, that holds fish. You just gotta go out there and find them. Basically, I don't know, it's kind of scarce, in my opinion. More big fish water on that river.
Interesting.
Have you fished the Wisconsin farther down by like Wausau or anything?
I have not, but I do know that has a lot of big fish. A buddy of mine just caught a 49 and 3/4, which is the rarest muskie on earth. Uh,
It's an
Damn.
honest man right there.
right
Yeah.
down there, yeah. So I was like, wow, it's crazy. It's actually right outside his house too. So that was pretty cool.
Where's this house at?
Easy.
yeah, it's right in Wausau.
Totally.
But yeah, the Wisconsin River has really big muskies. Actually, it's pretty cool. But you just got to they're few and far between.
Do you feel like it's easier to like kind of get a game plan together when you're going to fish like the Wisconsin River or a river system? I mean,
I'm not.
don't you,
I'm
you're just
not.
kind of fishing the steep shoreline or whatever, but
I'm just kind of fishing whatever looks good and whatever looks like a nice little eddy. I don't
yeah.
really have much of a game plan because there's just not a whole lot of water to that's there like a lake. Kind of just going and following the river channel and trying to pick out what looks good. I'm not the biggest river guy. It's just not really my thing. There's just so much that I have to choose from, so I just don't really care to fish rivers. Um, yeah, that's my best advice I can give. I don't have a whole lot of experience on them, unfortunately.
Well, I want to switch gears a little bit with you because it's something that probably a lot of our listeners are about to embark on. But what's your plan here with deer season on the horizon? We'll get back to some muskie talk in a second, but I know that's kind of your main focus now. So what's the status of that? Are you traveling for that, or are you doing some stuff here close to home?
I am traveling. I refuse to hunt the land anywhere near the metro just because there's people everywhere. But I am traveling to some land that my relatives own. I'm gonna go hunt with my cousins and uncle and my father on like 70 acres in northern Wisconsin, up near Anago. Pretty good area. I'm probably gonna be there opening day till Tuesday, and then shoot home Wednesday for Thanksgiving, and then maybe the weekend after. Maybe depends on how many tags we fill. that's kind of my thing. This year I decided to skip bow hunting again. Next year I'll get back into that.
So forgive me because I'm naive in this a little bit. Gus has got more experience, but are these weekends you're bringing Carbon with you to hang out, or is you just solo dolo in the shack? And
Solo dolo in the shack with the cousins. My uncle is not a big fan of dogs, so she will not be coming to the hunt shack, unfortunately. I did train her to
Boo.
blood trail deer, so maybe one of them will wound a deer, and I can have my mom bring her up quick for me, and we can track a deer, and then she'll get to come in the future. But
You
There you
did
go.
train her to do that?
oh yeah, she
Oh,
can.
that's impressive.
She can retrieve ducks. She can flush pheasants, flush rabbits. She can retrieve blood trail deer, so that's pretty cool. It's got to teach her to hunt sheds soon here, and then she's like ultimate hunting dog.
yeah.
And only like
It's
8 or 9
incredible.
months old
She is, I think, about 10 months now.
or 10. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did you guys have any funny stories with her on the boat with you guys on, was that Sunday she was out there?
Sunday, yeah. That was the first
Yep.
time she was out sucker fishing, right? Her first ever
Yeah.
sucker fall hunt.
It was her first big girl trip, and she has an obsession. She's a thief. She likes to steal things and then bring it to her little area wherever that is, and just kind of keep it. And she kept stealing Gus's gloves that he had kind of on the ground,
Yeah,
and
it's
he'd
spare
put them
gloves.
away. Yeah, your spare gloves. You put them away under your cooler or something, and she'd move the cooler and grab the gloves.
Oh yeah,
start
she
and
found
then
him.
make off with them.
I mean, that's a good girl right there.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
that's what she's trained for, trained to find
Yeah.
some things.
She was cute. She was a good dog. She was real funny, real interested in what Gus was doing. Anything that he started fiddling with something, she was, right on him. Like, what are you doing, dude? What's going
Oh
on?
yeah.
It's got to help a slow fishing day having a dog out there to at least watch.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I had a little bed for her and she was laying there a little bit. It was nice. She had a good time.
So next time you ever on the boat, if she's starting to dig through and scavenge all your gloves, just take the hooks off an old Titan and throw it at her.
Yeah, that's about what they're good for. Yeah, I love that.
Oh, that's good stuff. Well, I'm glad she got out there to experience that. That's pretty cool. I mean, seems like she's an absolute weapon in the outdoors world. So it'd be nice to have her, nice little musky trained pooch as well. That'd be good.
Yeah, she is. She's doing really good with the boat. The first thing I ever trained her on was boat etiquette and don't pee and shit in my boat, please.
Mhm.
Boat etiquette.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
grab the pretty musky baits and get a hook in your face. She had to learn
That's a
that the
big
hard
one.
way when she was young. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't need any shallow raters dangling from the mouth. That'd be bad.
Yeah.
I
She
think I
has an
figured-
infatuation with beaver tails. She just loves how they look.
Yeah, she likes the
Oh,
rubber
oh.
baits and yeah, she also I think I just figured this out, or I not just figured it out, but she why she was running around so much and checking out what I was doing, she kept licking my monster can. My energy
Yeah.
drink.
Yeah. She likes to drink root beer, Coca-Cola, energy drinks, and coffee. Basically anything that you're
Got a
drinking.
good palate.
Yeah, good palate. Yeah. Anything you're drinking, she's gotta have a taste of. If you set it down, she's gonna start licking the can or the rim of whatever. If it's an
Carbon
open glass, she'll drink the whole thing.
Carbon kind of reminds me of Brian a little bit.
Whenever you're not watching, I'm gonna take a swig.
Yeah. I mean, every time I crack a monster, Brian's like, "You gonna finish that?" Or...
Oh, remember? Hey, remember on Bender weekend when there's 2 bubblers left and Brian's like, "All right, Max, you want the this I don't know, for the sake of the story, the blueberry one or the blue
Oh,
one
that was with
or
Jack.
the or that was with Jag or the twisted elixir." And like you gave him an option and he picked twisted elixir and you immediately obviously
Like,
that was
I
the
don't
one that you
know. I don't know
wanted. It's
about
like, I
that.
don't know, man. This other one's pretty good.
Said to be a nice guy.
So obviously, Gus, you and the Guru got out on the boat first time ever. What was tell me what the camaraderie was like. What were you guys chopping it up about out there?
I know we had probably just some like old stories and things rolling for sure. it definitely felt good to have you on the podcast already, I think twice at the time. And, now this is your third time. So it felt like I already kind of knew you a little bit, which is really nice for the start. And we just chopped it up. I mean, it was fun the first day, like you said, the game plan in that lake, it was just start here and go around the entire lake on the edge. So there wasn't
Yeah.
too much thinking on the whole fishing part, which gave plenty of room for the talking part. Like I barely even remember what the hell I was doing out there. I can't even believe I caught fish casting. I was
Mhm.
so just not really that interested in that for the most part at the time.
Yeah, that the strategy was start here, go all the way around till we catch one.
It just so happened to
Real,
catch three. That was awesome.
real complicated work out there.
So, did you guys solve any major problems in the muskie industry while you guys were out on the boat, or solve any of the world's problems while you're out there?
I'm not sure if we can solve Muskie World's problems, but we can sure talk about
Yeah.
them.
They'll be hard to fully solve, that's for sure.
I remember we were talking about like how with rise of social media, a lot of muskie anglers can get um, stuck on like how big the fish is or how many fish they catch per season, and that can really just suck the joy out of muskie fishing. And at one point in my life, I was like, I got to catch 100 fish a season. If I'm short by one fish, I'm not happy with it. Or I got to catch a 50 this season. If I'm short by half an inch, I'm not happy with it. And man, it seems like there's a lot of guys and gals out there now that's their sole focus. And a lot of that, I feel like a lot of that hatred and BS that goes on is because of that type of mentality that people have and like desire to just pump numbers into things. And like once you put a number to something, your depression rates and problems start to arise. And I just feel like a lot of issues in the muskie world are because of numbers and quantification, when in reality, you should just be going out trying to just do your best and do better than yourself yesterday instead of the next guy over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I mean, I can honestly speak on that a little bit just from starting this podcast is kind of, I think it's, not to get like too real here, but I think it's something that I think I actively need to probably kind of refocus myself on, because now it almost feels like when we do these weekends where we're like, hyping it up, like, oh, we're going to have a muskie bender and we're going to do all this stuff. Like the focus does kind of start to shift to, okay, like we got to put some fish in the boat because A, we got to talk about it the next week, and B, like we're going to post some stuff on our Instagram and whatever. And that was never really the case. So that's been kind of I don't know about you, Gus, with like now kind of doing the podcast and the guiding and like showing that, hey, book a trip with me, I can catch fish. But I know for me, it's shifted the mentality a little bit where I've kind of had to like remind myself, like, dude, you do this not to, obviously, yes, to catch fish, but you really just do this to like get out there and have fun with buddies and spend time outdoors. And I know I've definitely gotten a little bit at times caught up in like the actual end, the means to the end, and not the kind of means part of it, which is a little bit more. I mean, not a little bit, but it is the most important part, is just getting out and chilling and hanging out on the boat. So no, I appreciate you bringing that up, because I know I've definitely need to get a little bit better with that. Over these past this summer particularly was definitely the shift, and it's just been interesting, new world, like actually publicizing, fish catches and tournament results and stuff like that, because it's musky fishing. More times than not, it's going to not be the results you want. So
Yeah.
it's, I don't know, Gus, how you've been dealing with that, but I know for me, it's been a little bit tricky.
Yeah, I don't know. I like that we talked about the whole numbers thing, because that is something that I've gotten caught up with a little bit, because as you know, Max, Brian, and I don't know about you, Tyler, but we keep track of our numbers of muskies caught. We got a board here that chalkboard, very high tech here at the Manti household. But and then just top 3 biggest fish. So, I see that every single day, and I try not to stare at it and be like, we need more or anything, dumb like that. Just, yeah, I don't know.
Hey,
The numbers thing is
Gus, real quick. Where's Brian on that top 3 list?
number 3.
Where and who's number 1 right now?
That's you, Max.
Isn't this what we're talking about?
Yeah. Whoa. Hold on 1 second. Yeah. All right, pump your brakes, Max. Quit flexing on him. All right, everybody. Max has the biggest fish in the boat of the year. Brian is the 3rd. Womp womp.
It's about the chase, guys, not about the size of the fish.
Right. No, 100% is about the chase. And no, there's definitely been like a fine line between that, like the numbers thing, needing to put fish in the boat, whether that be fishing for fun, guiding, or tournaments. Like I said, there's like a fine line there where I need to just tell myself that I'm doing this because I love it. And I can't just like be only focused about like we need to put a fish in the boat. I don't know. I'm thinking really hard on this, and I'm trying to think on what to say.
I know we've kind of sprung this conversation upon you guys. I mean, you and Tyler live a little bit more in the spotlight on the fishing social media world than Brian and I do.
Like I need to
more relevant to you guys.
Yeah, like obviously I need to post pictures to show people that I catch fish. I also don't want to post every single one and then talk everything about like I don't know, like numbers exactly, like
It's hard.
How many we're catching in a week, what we're averaging, and like this is why you need to come with me because catch fish. That's not the point that I'm gonna hopefully try and bring across, and that we're gonna try and bring across as a podcast as well. That's just not the point. I'm just trying to teach people how to musky fish. I mean, the biggest thing that I don't know the exact number on this. I haven't even looked. Like that's how much I'm trying to not get caught up in the numbers. Is that I've put a ton of people on their first muskie this year, and that's what I'm most proud about for sure. That's the biggest part. Seeing the first muskie smiles, and that's what I want to share with the world and share to people that anybody can do it. I just had a young kid catch his first muskie the other week. We were trolling and we had suckers out. Nothing ate the suckers, but we got one trolling, and although it wasn't ginormous, it was his first ever, and it kind of hopefully sparked something where his dad was with us and said like, oh, I don't think Luke will be reaching for the bobber rods anytime soon in the next couple of years. And I'm like, that's awesome.
That's cool.
So that's the stuff that I'm looking for.
It's hard with social media. Like obviously everybody who catches a big fish like wants it to be seen, and like they should. Like it's a cool accomplishment. But like most muskie anglers, I think enjoy like the hunt and like everything that goes into a fishing weekend more so than like the actual catch. I mean, like don't get me wrong, like the actual catch, the adrenaline rush, like that's probably the best part. But like looking back on a weekend or whatever, you love everything in between the fish equally. Like, and it's hard for people to show that on social media unless you're making like a YouTube video with a ton of B-roll or whatever. And we've always loved those videos, like Keys Outdoors videos where they show him like from the moment he wakes up, everything he does, get into the water, like they fill in all the gaps, which is like the cool part about like going out for a full 12-hour day. So like for anybody who's not making videos, they're just going to post the fish and, is what it is. Might come across wrong if like, they're fish eyeing that thing and 0.5 zoom to try and make it look like a 50, but
that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Oh man, I think I've been throwing some hashtags on my posts that not bubble lens or not, I don't even know what I'm saying. Something dumb.
Hashtag no scope.
Yeah.
Guru, do you feel like that's why you've kind of almost, and I think you've done a great job of it, but like you almost kind of put a little bit of a comedic spin on some of your videos just to kind of lighten the mood with all that?
Yeah, so it's just, a lot of people, not everybody, but some of the people that are obviously like clout chasers that aren't very nice to others in the industry, which unfortunately a lot of them exist in the muskie industry, all seem to have the same YouTube channel where it's the intro is like, I'm Mr. Badass. Look at me catch this giant muskie. Yeah, 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 yeah. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have that same intro, but we're gonna just make fun of me the whole time. And that's my intro. And then I just have comedy throughout the whole time while I'm holding this 46 incher that I just caught. And I'm like, this is perfect. Like you get to see a big fish caught, might teach you something. You get to laugh and giggle at the same time. So I'm like, I don't really want to be like everybody else. I'm not someone who's real full of himself. I'm just happy to go out and fish. I love fishing, love hunting, but I'm also a pretty goofy dude, so I kind of want to show that at the same time.
Yeah. And that comes across naturally. I mean, it's not something you can force. So like, even if you're not somebody that has like I don't want to sound mean, like not naturally, maybe like a funny dude, but you still want to, pump your stuff. Like, I think as long as you're doing it and you're like natural about it and just being yourself, I think that always shows through on people's stuff, no matter who you are, like whether you are somebody who's trying to give out some tips or you're just capturing a moment or whatever, as long as you're just doing it like in a ethical and natural way, like I think those are the people that I definitely have related to in the muskie community the most. People pages I follow the most and stuff like that. It's hard because there's a lot of it out there now. I mean, it's just not like it used to be where, if like kind of handling with the Muskies on Tap Instagram, Brian, I'm sure you've seen it now that like we have some followers and we're following people, man. It's crazy. Like it makes you feel a little anxious when you go out and fish because all you're seeing all weekend is pictures of other people catching fish. You go on Instagram on a Saturday night, it's like all these people have caught fish today. And if you have or haven't, like it makes you feel some type of way where it's like, man, this is weird. This isn't my normal from what it's been the last 5-6 years when we really got into this stuff. We weren't doing, we didn't really care. It just wasn't on our radar. Now it is. Like it's completely engulfed everything. So it's just been a huge change that I know I'm a little bit conflicted with dealing with. I still love it. I love doing this podcast. I love everything about it, but it's been a whole game changer for us. I know that we've talked about it off pod before.
Yeah, the transition. Oh shoot, what was I gonna say?
Well, the transition just to broadcasting.
Oh, right. Like transition and just like social media. That's why when I'm out in the water, I do not like looking at my phone at all.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah. Sorry, Max. I do not text you back when I'm on the water, really. I might send you a pic if we catch one. It might not be right away, but that's just how I am. I don't know. Like I think of all the posts that I made on Instagram and Facebook this year, there might have been one where I posted, other than PMTT, I think there's like one that I posted like 1 or 2 days after it was caught. Like I didn't post anything right when it was caught. It was just because I would never do that. I'd never post a lot. And then I got to remind myself, like I'm marketing myself. I should probably post some pictures of muskies.
It's a fine line. I feel like
I don't want to do too much and don't want to flood people's, it's tough.
Yeah, it's a fine line. It's not. It's just a whole new world, that we're kind of delving into, and now we're just immersed in it and seeing it, and it's interesting for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, you're just out there just trying to catch a fish, and it's kind of crazy.
And us all four of us being relatively young, comparatively to the rest of the muskie industry, I think we can hopefully help change it for the future. Get a little brighter mindset going on muskie fishing, that it doesn't have to be so hardcore.
There's in the muskie industry, hopefully it changes that. There's this feast or famine mentality, with a lot of things, and hopefully you guys can change that. The younger generation can get that out of here.
Yeah. I just hope that we can help for sure. We don't want to act like we're the only ones trying to change it or anything like that. There's plenty of others, like, Max was saying, we've, met a ton of people in this industry that are very like-minded with us and, want the same things. Some people maybe are a little bit more open about it and talk about it. And some people maybe don't want to do that, whether that's just verbally when you talk to them or if it's posting on social media and whatnot. But yeah, I think we can definitely help carry it in the right direction. Trying to think back on some of the other boat talk that we had, Tyler. I know some of it might definitely need to be just saved for an entire podcast on itself. Otherwise, we could ramble for a little too long tonight.
Well, this is probably the most interesting part of the podcast we've had, but I mean, like Guru, when you say feast or famine, like what do you mean by that? Like, I kind of want you to flush that out a little bit. Like, is it just, you're
Yeah,
either
it's
catching
like,
fish or not, or what's?
well, it's like this guy's catching fish and I'm not, I'm maybe not that good, or I'm catching fish and you're not, or this guy got, I spent a lot of time in the professional industry, so I got to see that play out on like a much more intense scale versus just, regular muskie anglers. I got to see the top guys just absolutely just hate each other's guts, because it's like, well, I'm a guide here in this location, you're a guide there in this location. I hate you because you could be taking my customers away. And when in reality, a customer's probably going to use both guides. Or bait makers are like, let's two bucktail bait makers hate each other, right? And they're like, well, you're taking my customers away from my bucktails and vice versa. When in reality, I own a bucktail from every bait manufacturer, and I've caught a muskie on every single one. And it's like, just because your bait's good doesn't mean I'm just going to be exclusive to yours and not buy this other one over here, because each has their own use in places. And a lot of these old farts in the industry just kind of, they just don't get it, where it's like, if they just work together and we're friendly to each other, they can make significantly more money cross promotion. I mean, if for example, I won't elaborate on it, but if you look at the comedic industry and how they cross promote each other with podcasts and everything, they make a ton more money by doing that. And the culture is much better than it used to be. And that should happen in the muskie industry, in my opinion. That's kind of what I mean by the feast or famine. It's just like, oh, you make a competing bucktail. F you. Like, it doesn't have to be that way, because I'm going to buy both as a consumer, because that's what I like to do.
Well, something we talk a lot about in our industry is like the amount of pie that there is to be shared. And there's always enough pie to go around, especially like you were just saying in the muskie industry with like that type of stuff. I mean, trust me, look in 99% of the muskie anglers boxes, they're going to own a very vast variety of lures, no matter what. That's just kind of how it is. Like there's a different application for different baits and all these different scenarios. And half the fun, like Brian and I have talked and opined about multiple times, half the fun of muskie fishing is throwing on something different, switching it up, being the guy to catch one on something weird that day or whatever. I mean, that's like part of the process that is fun to us. It's like, you want to try different stuff and, see if there's like, cause the biggest thing with muskie fishing is it's like always a puzzle that you're trying to put together that you never can really finish. So there's always new pieces that you're trying to, bring onto your boat or whatever and trying to make it fit, make it work. And that's like one of the most fun things is just, hey, let's see if this works in this condition or whatever. I mean, like Gus said, there's just no hard, fast rules. So I agree. I think the more collaboration, the more, pie sharing, if you will, that there is, the better the industry is they're going to be as a whole. I mean, I think right now it's probably more popular. Muskie fishing is probably more popular than it maybe ever has been. I mean, obviously I haven't lived back in the day and we didn't live through some of those heyday bites when things exploded, but I just feel like right now, the amount that we're seeing on social media and people and tournaments and everything, you name it, podcasts, whatever, I feel like it's probably at, it's going to continue to grow and it's probably at the highest it's been in a long time, is from a consumer standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty awesome. This is like a golden age right now for gear and people and everything. It's really coming up, which is nice to see.
Yeah, I mean the fact that us three freaking, two idiots and Gus can start a podcast and actually get the amount of listeners that we've been able to get just goes to show that there's a need for people wanting to know how to catch these stupid fish, and also hear about stories and, whatever trials, tribulations, everything. The market's out there, and that's exciting because it's obviously become a big part of all of our lives. So yeah, I mean, it's we're definitely living through interesting times because while it's the height of the consumer side of musky fishing, it is the height of the dissemination of information on social media too. Like 100%. I mean, it's crazy how many people post pictures of fish and have different ways of catching them and all that stuff. It's just nuts. I mean, and it'll be interesting to see where it continues to go and how many more people will convert and try to chase these things. It's going to be nuts. We got a lot of interesting things happening in Wisconsin. I mean, they just introduced they've introduced Great Lake spotted strain into a few different lakes. They've introduced Leech Lakers into a few different lakes. I mean, things are gonna really start to take off, I feel like, in Wisconsin over the next decade.
That is awesome. That's so exciting.
I mean,
So
it's
exciting.
like you're gonna get a Minnesota heyday Mille Lacs. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna be the same, but you're gonna get some crazy bites on some of these new bodies of water,
Mm-hmm.
in Wisconsin. You're gonna just rinse and repeat this cycle.
It's gonna be man, I wish they did that 10 years ago for us now who are living in Wisconsin. Like the last 10 years have been, busting my ass trying to catch a super giant and bilus. It'd be great if they had leechers back then.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna still be a bit, but I mean, and I think too, just the stocking in general, like, from making a few more contacts in that side of the world, like it just seems like it's kind of the height. Talking with JVR last weekend, him saying, a guy that's been doing this damn near every single day for 20, 25 seasons in a row, saying that this is probably the best state of muskie fishing has been in Wisconsin in a long time. Just kind of crazy to hear. Like that's only going to continue to, stay the same or get better, I'd imagine. I mean, they're obviously treating it as a prized resource.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's all good in my book. I just think that's just going to make more people want to do it,
I think the stocking will only continue to get better. Because I feel like 10 years ago, when like these lake association members would get together and put out their votes on like what they wanted to prioritize stocking, it was very heavily walleye and like panfish and your eater fish, and they hated the muskie because they took they ate all the walleye or ate all the bluegill. And I feel like now the muskie fishing growing in popularity, that that vote won't be so one-sided, and hopefully we'll be getting higher stocking numbers going forward.
Well, they've finally had the research to back it up on why that's not the case.
Yeah.
Right. No, they definitely do have that research. I think Minnesota did that, where like muskies just do not eat as many walleyes as people always thought. But on another note, with that stocking thing, what's interesting, I think it might be a little backwards. I looked at a lot of old reports on pretty much, every single lake that we like to fish around here, and they stocked way more muskies in all of the lakes. And just recently, they've cut a lot of lakes. They used to stock one fish per 1 to 2 acres, and now on a lot of those same bodies of water, they're stocking like one fish per 3, 4, 5 acres. The past 5, 6 years, but 6 to 16 years, they would stock almost one fish per acre or two. And I'm trying to wrap my head around on what that's going to do to a few lakes, just based on fishing pressure, the fact that they're already considered action water. The top end fish isn't quite, always there, but sometimes these lakes are getting better, and we've seen that. And then we've seen some other lakes getting worse. I don't even want to get into the one where I've now met multiple people at the launch where when I got in and they said, "Oh, did you catch one?" We're like, "Yeah, we got one small one." And they're like, "Did you keep it?" And I go, "No." They're like, "Oh, damn it. You should have kept it." I'm like, "What?" Why? They're like, "Yeah, well, we keep every single one we catch." And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not coming back to this lake at all. They're gone.
That sucks.
They're taken away." There might be a couple top end fish in there that those people won't catch potentially, but they're keeping every small fish, which is hard to hear when you're, getting off the water after a guide trip trying to put some people on a fish
Yeah.
and release it. And then the person at the boat launch gets pissed that you didn't keep the muskie. But I don't know. I'd be interested to see where some of these lakes go on just
So
numbers
you're
wise.
so you're kind of not in the same camp of what I just said. Like you think it'll continue to get better. You're kind of on the other side of it,
No,
where you're
not
like
not
worried.
better and not worried. I'm just saying I'm just maybe like throwing a correction in there where you're saying that they would stock them, this and that back in the day, and they're gonna think about stocking them more. Where who knows how accurate everything is. I'm just basing this off of Wisconsin DNR, but I'm seeing less stocking in almost every single lake that we fish. Where like the 10-year mark of 10 years ago was like the peak stocking, and then the last 5 years it's less, and they're still doing it every other. There was
Is there
kind of
natural reproduction in those that they're trying to let take over, or
that's a very good possibility that a lot of them do have natural reproduction, but there's no studies or research at all. We can speculate because a lot of the bodies of water that we fish have tigers in them, and they don't stock any tigers up here. So I don't know. I was just bringing that point out. I guess I don't know if it's a concern or just a point to get out. I don't know.
We're all doomed.
There's going to be no more muskies left.
walleyes on tap next year?
Guru, you got any inside track on any of that or not so much?
I haven't paid attention to the stocking in a long time. I try not to think about it because Wisconsin DNR, how they handle muskies, pisses me off. 'Cause it could have been really, really awesome like Minnesota, but they've fumbled the ball for a couple decades on trophy stocking. Now it seems like they're getting on track with what they should be doing, which is nice, but I don't live there no more, so that pisses me off too.
Yeah, and then now it's the word gets out faster than maybe it did in 2005 for some of those bites.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, it'll be over in a month.
yeah, one person finds out about it and then the whole county knows.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be tough. That's why I go fish new lakes all the time. I'm trying to learn a lot. I don't want to landlock myself to say just the Eagle River chain or something like that. That'd be tough because if the Eagle River chain goes through a bad bite or a tough year, it's gonna be tough for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
All right. Well, Tyler, thanks for hopping on again as a residential co-host at this point. I feel like you're almost part of the pod here now, just hopping on and
We're out of the interview phase with him. Now he just comes on to chop.
yeah. Just comes on to tell some stories and shoot the shit, which we're always very appreciative because he's got a plethora of that. So best of luck with deer hunting. We'll be excited to hear how that goes. Hopefully we'll be able to get together here this late fall, but excited for you for the deer season and keeping up with training carbon and everything. You got your hands full, man. You're a busy dude.
Lots going on in my life at the moment, and I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah.
Yep.
To be more discussed on the next time, I'm sure you come on for one of these random nights and
Oh yeah,
hang out with us.
I'll spill the beans in the future.
All right. Well, that'll give us plenty to chat about next time. We can't thank you enough for coming on as always, man. I'm glad you and Gus got to share the boat together. Hopefully, Brian and I can join you guys next time around. It'd be a lot of fun, us four, to get out there, whether we go to Lake X or not. You show us around there.
Yeah.
Or, put a blindfold on us, whatever you need to do. We're down.
We'll make that happen next year.
Oh yeah, boys. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it, and you boys take care.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Guru.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Tyler. All right, we can't thank the guru Tyler Andrews enough for coming on the pod. Like Max said, just to come chop it up, pretty much be our fourth co-host. at this point, being the first person to be on the podcast 3 times now. He has hit a milestone, and he will definitely be hitting 4, 5 plus, appearances for sure.
You know who I know is gonna have something to say about that real quick, not to cut you off. I know Clayton's gonna have something to say about that.
Well, that's right. He's been on twice. We're gonna have to
I
get
know
him on
Clayton's.
again.
I know, and he's kind of our other residential co-host. I know he's
Mhm.
going to be coming on here in the near future and
Mm-hmm.
hang out with the fellas a little bit.
Yep, that's right. And yeah, I can't appreciate the guru enough for showing me a cool bite over the weekend, and we had a great time catching some fish, chopping it up. That was fun as always. But yeah, we just talked about a whole random assortment of muskie topics tonight, whether that was just fall fishing or the state of muskie fishing, which I think we really dove in probably deeper than I thought we were going to tonight. And I think we're for sure going to hold off on some of that talk, more so for the winter, the fireside chatter that we'll bring out for all the listeners to get everybody by when it's dull, dark, and cold out. But I hope everybody enjoyed what we talked about tonight. And if we did, I don't think we really ever did come off in the wrong way. Just know that we weren't trying to do anything like that. We're just trying to
We ain't bad people, all right?
Yep, exactly what Brian just said. We're not bad people. We're just trying to give out good musky info to the community. Bring out what do you call it, Max? PVO, positive vibes only.
Mm-hmm.
Bring out some PVO in the boat, and yeah, hopefully you learn a few tricks here and there throughout this podcast. And I hope everybody learned at least something over this whole summer and the months that we've started this podcast. So
And hopefully we'll have one more good weekend to break down in a few weeks if the weather cooperates. Even if it doesn't, there's going to be water open somewhere.
We'll find
Yeah,
it.
we'll make it work probably regardless. I mean, we're trying to keep 2 weekends open in November for us 3 to get back in the boat together and do one last mott send. I will say the stuff that we were talking about before, if anybody listening has any insider scoops or tracks to, the Wisconsin DNR or stocking and kind of the theology behind that, I'd be really curious to get in touch with somebody, whether they wanted to come on the podcast, talk about it, or just kind of internally with us chat about it. Be kind of interested to hear on where the direction of that's going, because it sounded like Gus and I mean, obviously Gus came in with a little bit more factual information. I was just kind of going off of like the momentum of muskie fishing. But it sounds like maybe there, is some sort of difference in stocking reports from now until, from now and from what it was, 8 to 10 years ago. So I'd be really curious to dive in more into that. I don't know. I feel like it's something that and obviously, we want the resource to flourish. So I'd be curious to learn more about it, I guess.
Yeah, I think I would as well. And I didn't mean to come off in a bad way at all when I was talking about anything to do with stocking. That's just personally what I've seen, looking at the numbers. And, over the years, I don't have enough, age or wisdom of the matter as some other people do on the ebbs and flows of systems, whether they were stocked too much or whether they weren't stocked at all. The difference between having too many fish and stunted fish, or top end fish, but there's not that many. There's a lot of trade-offs in there with how many fish are stocked. And then, like I was saying before, I don't know the exact answers because some lakes have natural reproduction, some have none, some have a little, some are almost entirely natural reproduction. And, those are the ones that you really got to hold on to. And I don't know. I still think that we're in a great direction and there's a lot of fish up here. I mean, just look at tournament outcomes on some of the bodies of water up here and what they can produce for northern Wisconsin. I think we're in great hands. And I I think if we really want to learn more, I definitely think we'll have to probably get somebody on the podcast who has the research or the knowledge or maybe the numbers and science to back it up.
Talk to an expert. That'd probably be the
Yeah,
way to go.
that's
You
pretty
got
much
any
it.
you got any contacts in the I don't know, local DNR up there? I'd be curious, Gus, to
Mhm.
get somebody on. Maybe one of your friends knows somebody or something, and be curious to chat with them because I would love to kind of hear, what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's also some old backlash episodes on I can't remember anything off the top of my head, but they did have somebody on who talked a good amount about that. I'm probably gonna have to re-listen to those as a refresher, but they also I think came out a year or two or more ago because they've been obviously doing their podcast for a super long time. But yeah, that's all interesting stuff. I think we've pretty much covered a good amount here. I think before we sign off here, I'll just quick give another update that there's still some hoodies left. Definitely more black hoodies than gray hoodies are left. There's some pint glasses left as well. You can find those at my guide page, www.sugsfishing.com. Really, really appreciate all of those who have purchased some Mott hoodies, and we love seeing people sporting those around and hopefully catching some fish in there. As we like to say, they're scientifically asterisk proven to put fish in the bag with the lower case asterisk. No science to back that up.
Actually, Gus, now that you mentioned it, another peer-reviewed study just dropped. I don't know if you saw this. Harvard, Brown, a lot of the major universities supported it. And if you actually drink beer from the Muskies on Tap pint glasses, that will give you good fortune moving forward, whether you're fishing for muskies in the fall, deer season, ice fishing. They've all said that if you're drinking beer, on a Thursday from a Muskies on Tap pint glass, that weekend, scientifically, your chances of getting the species that you're after will improve.
And it'll make you feel good.
Yeah, right. And also
tingly feeling. If you have
and also on the flip side, if you don't get the species that you're looking for, scientifically proven to help you cope with an unsuccessful trip.
Yes.
The science actually on that is very solid.
Yeah.
I've been talking to a few professors that have wrote an extensive amount of research on this topic. And
how many Mott pint glasses have you had tonight?
Not enough to be saying roten.
Well, I don't. Is there any they got any graphs, multiple graphs looking at like type of beer or like what's giving somebody their best odds? I mean, there's got to be percentages that they're giving out, or is it just?
It's like 90p.
Actually, the amount it's actually a liquid per consumption ratio. It's not the actual liquid that's in there. It's actually the amount. So the more amount that you drink, the more your chances actually increase. Is how the graphs typically go.
Next day studies going on with that one, or
next day it's all gone. I mean, you are in a dark place. Relative to how many times you fill up that Muskies on Tap glass.
There's actually another study that also has come out, here, that the more pint glasses you drink, the more likely it is that you're going to sleep in jeans too. So,
that's true. That study is facts.
I think before we get a little too far into this, I got to put a disclaimer here on the old Mott pint glass. We are not responsible for the amount that you put in and drink per night. Please use your Mott pint glasses responsibly.
Yep, they're not exclusively for beers. You can put some water in there too. Don't be afraid to do that.
I've dabbled with it. I don't know what it is about those things, but they got a hole in the bottom of them, I think. I don't know if it's actual construction or if it's just because
construction.
Yeah, that's right. I tapped a hole into each and every one of them sent out.
All
All
right.
right, so
Well,
moral of the story, guys, go check out that merch. Christmas is coming up, kind of. Maybe you want to get something for someone special or a Thanksgiving gift. So
yeah, everybody gives gifts on Thanksgiving. It's pretty
yeah,
typical.
yeah. Instead of bringing that dish over to the family's place, bring over a crew of Mott hoodies for everybody.
Now you're talking.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a party.
I like where you're going with that. I like yeah, no, it's been a good run with the mod hoodies. Been fun to seeing where we're sending them out. So people repping in a few different states. It's always good. Spreading the love.
Yeah, we've hit quite a few states. So thank you all to have gotten them already and to the future ones as well. So all right, guys, I think we'll wrap up the podcast here tonight. Brian, you got anything to take us away here? Send us off, shaking your head. Is that a no?
Oh man, it's shoo, we are man. Yeah, this was a hard podcast to keep up with. I hope everybody listening was able to follow along. So we were bouncing all over the place tonight. Pleasure having the guru on again. Looking forward to having him back on here in the winter blues of January. Praying that the sun keeps coming out and we'll be able to fish here in a few weeks. But good luck to everybody else who's fishing. Prior to Thanksgiving, hope everybody had a good Halloween. If you caught a giant fish on Halloween, send that to the Muskie on Tap DMs for a chance to be featured on the story, guys. Thank you for listening to it.